I had always believed my life with Marcus was built on a foundation no one could shake. For 8 years, we lived together in a stately Victorian house in Richmond, Virginia, the home his grandfather had left him. Marcus, a gentle and determined veterinarian, poured his energy into healing injured animals, while I worked long shifts as a nurse. Our evenings were quiet, filled with shared meals and laughter, the garden we planted together, just outside the kitchen window. We weren't wealthy, but we had each other, and that felt like more than enough. Still, there was a constant undercurrent of tension: the Coleman family. From the first dinner Marcus took me to at his parents' house, I felt the chill. Patricia Coleman, with her stiff smile and manicured hands, had looked me over as if I were a project she needed to tolerate. "She's very practical," she had said that night, making the word sound like an insult. Raymond, Marcus's father, barely concealed his displeasure that his only son had chosen a middle-class nurse instead of one of the daughters from his social circle. They didn't see me as Marcus's partner. They saw me as a threat to their legacy. The Coleman family defined themselves by tradition and bloodline. Raymond spoke of family property the way some people spoke of sacred texts. The house, the land, the veterinary practice, these were their inheritance, their pride. During what Raymond called our pre-wedding discussion, he had made his position clear. "You understand, Ashley, family property stays within the bloodline," he said, eyes fixed on me. "Marcus is young and romantic, but business is business." I nodded politely, holding my anger in check for Marcus's sake. But inside I was burning. After we married, I endured 8 years of being tolerated but never welcomed. Holiday dinners where my chair was always at the far end of the table, conversations that ended abruptly when I entered a room, little barbs disguised as jokes about my upbringing, my education, my work. Marcus always noticed. He held me when his mother's comments cut too deep, and he defended me in private. But he kept hoping they would change, and for his sake I tried to hope too. Then, 3 months before Marcus died, I overheard a conversation that shattered any illusions I still held. We were at his cousin's wedding, and I had stepped away from the reception to find the restroom. On my way back, I saw the Coleman family huddled together, voices low but clear enough for me to catch every word. "When Marcus goes, the property comes back to the family, right?" Timothy asked. "She's not actually entitled to anything long-term, is she?" "Don't be ridiculous," Raymond replied. "Wives get temporary rights, but family property always returns to blood. Ashley will get personal effects, but the house, the land, the practice, that all comes back where it belongs." Patricia added, "The only complication is getting her to leave peacefully when the time comes." I froze. They were speaking of my husband's death as if it were an inevitability they had already planned for, and of me as if I were a squatter about to be evicted. My blood went cold. I hid in the bathroom until I could compose myself, then returned to Marcus, who was deep in conversation with his elderly uncle about wildlife rehabilitation. His face lit up when he saw me, pulling me into their discussion with that same gentle enthusiasm I had fallen in love with. But that night, as we drove home, I made a decision. "Marcus," I said carefully, "I overheard your family tonight. They're very confident about what happens to our property if something happens to you." He was silent for a long time, his hands tightening on the steering wheel. Finally, he said, "Ashley, I need to tell you something." That night in our kitchen over a glass of wine, Marcus showed me a side of himself I had never fully seen before. He had known for years how his family felt about me. He had hoped, like I had, that they would change. But after that wedding, he realized they never would. "I've had a will since the week after we got married," he told me, eyes steady on mine. But 3 months ago, after that conversation with my cousin, I decided it wasn't enough. "I've been working with Charles Peaton downtown. He's a top estate attorney. I've changed all property deeds to joint ownership with right of survivorship. That means everything automatically becomes yours if I die first." My heart raced as he spoke. "Marcus, your family has no idea." And that's not all, he said, placing a thick folder on the table. Inside were legal documents and a letter in his handwriting. "I've drafted a comprehensive will that leaves you everything: the house, the practice, our accounts. And I've explained why. Charles has notarized everything and keeps backup copies. If anything happens to me, you'll be protected." As I read Marcus's letter, tears blurred the words. For 8 years he had quietly documented every slight, every insult, every assumption his family had made about me. He had prepared for the day they would try to take everything from me. Looking up at him, I whispered, "Marcus, this is incredible. I hoped you'd never need it," he said softly. "But now at least you'll be safe." 6 weeks later, the world tilted beneath my feet. What Marcus thought was lingering indigestion turned out to be stage 4 pancreatic cancer. By the time the doctors found it, it had spread so far that even aggressive treatment offered only a few months. I still remember sitting in Dr. Williams's office at 3:15 p.m., gripping Marcus's hand while she spoke in that gentle practice tone. 6 months, maybe 8, if we're aggressive with treatment, she said softly. My ears buzzed the room, spinning around me. Marcus nodded calmly, already moving into planning mode while I sat frozen. That evening, back in our kitchen, he called Charles Peaton. "Charles, it's Marcus Coleman. We need to expedite those estate documents we discussed." "Yes, it's urgent." Over the next 2 weeks, Charles came to our house 3 times, bringing additional paperwork and making sure every clause was airtight. Marcus signed everything with a steady hand, though I could see the pain etched into his face. "I want to add one more provision," Charles suggested during his final visit. "A no-contest clause. If anyone challenges this, will they forfeit any potential inheritance entirely?" "Do it," Marcus said without hesitation. "I want Ashley protected from any legal harassment after I'm gone." As Marcus's body weakened, the Coleman family grew bolder. They visited more frequently, but their conversations circled like vultures over property and possessions, rather than Marcus's health. I noticed Raymond's eyes linger on furniture, Patricia's hands brushing the banister like she was already claiming it. One afternoon, while Marcus was napping, Patricia cornered me in the kitchen. "Ashley, dear," she said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes, "have you given any thought to where you'll live afterward?" "This is my home," I replied, my voice tight. "I plan to stay here." "Well, of course, temporarily," she said, glancing at Raymond. "But long-term you'll want something more suitable for a single woman. This house is really too large for one person." Raymond added, "Family property requires family resources to maintain properly." I bit my tongue, remembering Marcus's warning not to reveal anything about our legal preparations. Their arrogance was infuriating, but it also gave me a strange sense of calm. They had no idea what Marcus had done. 2 days before Marcus died, Gerald and Timothy came under the guise of visiting their brother. As I walked down the hallway, I heard them whispering just outside Marcus's door. "Dad wants to start moving some of the valuable pieces out before the funeral," Gerald said. "He's worried Ashley might try to claim them." "Smart thinking," Timothy replied. "We should probably change the locks too, just to avoid complications." "What about the veterinary practice? Dad's already contacted that new vet in Henrico, Dr. Peterson. He's interested in taking over the client list." I stood frozen, my stomach twisting. They were dividing our life while Marcus lay dying just feet away. That night I told Marcus what I had overheard. He was weak from pain medication, but his eyes still flashed with anger. "They're already dividing up our life?" he asked, voice barely audible. "I'm afraid so," I whispered. Marcus closed his eyes for a long moment, then looked at me with quiet determination. "Ashley, promise me something. When they come, and they will come, don't let them intimidate you. You have every legal right to everything we've built. Charles has all the documents and he knows exactly what to do." "I promise," I said, clutching his hand. "And don't feel guilty about fighting them," he murmured. "They've made their choice about how to treat you. Now they'll live with the consequences." Marcus passed away at 9:45 a.m. on a Tuesday in October, sunlight streaming through our bedroom windows. I held his hand, whispering how much I loved him, how grateful I was for the life we had shared. His face softened the tension, leaving him at last. The funeral was held 2 days later at St. Paul's Episcopal Church, the same place where we had exchanged vows 8 years earlier. The Coleman family took control of the arrangements, pushing me aside with practiced ease. "Ashley, dear, you'll sit in the second row," Patricia informed me the morning of the service. "Family sits in the front row." I nodded, biting back the reminder that I was his wife, his closest family. Their behavior only cemented Marcus's decision to protect me. After the burial, Raymond pulled me aside at the cemetery. "We'll give you a few days to grieve, Ashley," he said. "But then we need to discuss practical matters. The house will need to be cleaned out and we'll need time to prepare it for Gerald's family." "Gerald's family?" I asked, stunned. "He's been wanting to move back to Richmond," Raymond explained matter-of-factly. "The house is perfect for them and it keeps the property and the family where it belongs." "Raymond, that house is my home." "Was your home?" he corrected. "You were Marcus's wife and we're grateful for the care you gave him. But now it's time for family property to return to family." "I am family," I said quietly. Raymond's expression hardened. "You're not blood, Ashley. There's a difference." That night, I stayed at my sister Janet's house in Glen Allen, needing space to grieve without the Colemans' looming presence. When I told Janet about their plans, she was furious. "They can't just kick you out of your own house," she exclaimed. "You were married to Marcus for 8 years. "They seem very confident about their legal position," I replied calmly. "Well, they're wrong. You need to call a lawyer immediately." I smiled faintly. "Actually, Janet, Marcus already took care of that." 2 mornings later, the doorbell rang at 8:15 a.m. sharp. Through the frosted glass, I could make out Patricia's outline, rigid and expectant. Behind her, Raymond loomed like a bailiff, his posture stiff with authority. I opened the door only halfway. "We're here to start sorting Marcus's belongings," Patricia announced without preamble. "We'll need access to the attic, the study, and the garage today." "You'll have to speak with my attorney," I replied evenly. Patricia's eyebrows arched. "Attorney? Oh, Ashley, there's no need for theatrics. We're all family here. We can handle this privately." "Nevertheless," I said, "please direct any further communication to Mr. Charles Peaton. He represents me." Raymond's jaw clenched. "Don't play games. This is family property. Marcus would have wanted us to manage it." I opened the door fully and stepped aside just enough for them to see the envelope in my hand. "Actually," I said, "Marcus already managed it himself." Their eyes darted to the thick envelope stamped with Peaton and Associates. Before they could respond, my phone rang. Charles the First answered on speaker. "Ashley," Charles said crisply, "I just filed the notice with the clerk's office. The will is now public record. If the Colemans want to contest it, they'll be invoking the no contest clause. Everything Marcus owned, including the house the business proceeds, and personal effects, is yours outright." I looked directly at Patricia and Raymond as Charles continued. "If they attempt to remove any property from the premises, we'll consider it theft and involve law enforcement immediately." Patricia's smile faltered. "This isn't necessary," she said quickly. "We're just trying to help you transition." "I'm managing my own transition," I replied. "You'll receive a copy of the will by certified mail." Raymond's face flushed dark red. "This isn't over," he muttered, then turned on his heel. Patricia followed her heels, clicking sharply against the porch. They climbed into their black SUV and sped off without another word. When the door closed, I let out a long breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding. My hands were shaking. I sat at the kitchen table staring at the framed wedding photo of Marcus and me on the counter. "We did it, Marcus," I whispered. "We're safe." But it wasn't over yet. The next week, a letter arrived from the Coleman's attorney threatening to review the estate documents for irregularities. Charles assured me the will was ironclad. "Let them look," he said. "If they file a formal challenge, they lose every cent Marcus left them. They'll back down." And they did. For 3 tense weeks, nothing happened. Then, on a rainy Thursday evening, I found a large padded envelope stuffed into my mailbox. Inside were photocopies of family photographs, Marcus had taken over the year's Christmas mornings, 4th of July barbecues, his nephew's birthdays. There was no note, just the pictures. I didn't know if it was meant as a peace offering or a reminder of what they thought I'd stolen from them. The veterinary practice sold quickly. The proceeds went into a trust Marcus had established for me. Charles arranged for a security company to change all the locks at the house and install a new alarm system. Just a precaution, he said. I spent my nights walking through the empty rooms, hearing Marcus's voice in the echo of the hallways. Every drawer, every closet still smelled faintly of his aftershave. Sometimes I wondered if the house itself was too large for me after all, but then I'd remember Patricia's smirk and Raymond's condescension. No, I wasn't leaving. Not on their terms. One Saturday afternoon, as I was sorting Marcus's papers in the study, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "We know you manipulated Marcus. You'll regret this." My stomach turned to ice. I showed the message to Charles, who advised me to block the number and forward it to him for documentation. "They're bluffing," he said. "But keep your doors locked." I sat at Marcus's desk, staring out the window at the rain drumming against the glass. 8 years ago, when I first walked into this house as Marcus's wife, I could never have imagined this war. Yet beneath the fear, a strange sense of strength stirred inside me. Marcus had trusted me enough to plan for this. Now it was my turn to honor that trust by standing my ground. 2 months after the funeral, I held a small memorial at the animal shelter, where Marcus and I had volunteered every Sunday. Friends, neighbors, and clients came to share stories about his kindness and generosity. As I watched people hug, laugh, and cry together, I realized that Marcus had left me something more valuable than property or money, a community that saw me not as an outsider, but as his partner. That night, I went home, brewed a cup of chamomile tea, and sat on the porch as the crickets sang in the dark. For the first time since Marcus's diagnosis, I felt the tiniest glimmer of peace. The Colemans might still circle like vultures, but I had something stronger than their resentment: Marcus's foresight, my own resolve, and a legal fortress built on love and trust. Inside, the answering machine blinked with a new message. I pressed play. Patricia's voice filled the room, brittle and cold. "Ashley, this is Patricia Coleman. We'd like to meet to discuss certain family heirlooms Marcus had in his possession. Call me back by Friday or we'll proceed without you." I deleted the message. Then I poured my tea into Marcus's favorite mug, the one with the chipped handle and the faded picture of a golden retriever, and whispered to the empty kitchen, "Not on my watch." Friday came and went. I didn't return Patricia's call. By Monday, a certified letter arrived from the Colemans' attorney demanding a meeting at their office to negotiate the return of family heirlooms. Charles read it over the phone and chuckled. "There's nothing to negotiate," he said. "Marcus's will leaves every asset, tangible and intangible, to you. If there are specific items they want, they're welcome to ask politely. But you are under no obligation to surrender a single teaspoon." Still, I felt a tremor of unease. Marcus's mother's silver tea service, his grandfather's pocket watch. These things had sentimental weight even for me. Part of me wanted to offer a few items just to end the tension. But another part remembered the whispered plans to change the locks and sell off Marcus's business before his body was even cold. 3 days later, while I was upstairs folding laundry, I heard the crunch of tires on the gravel driveway. 2 black SUVs. My heart skipped a beat. When I peered out the window, I saw Patricia, Raymond, Gerald, and Timothy stepping out dressed in dark coats, like they were attending a funeral rather than staging a raid. I grabbed my phone and dialed Charles. "They're here," I whispered. "Stay inside," he said. "I'm calling the sheriff right now. Lock the doors and do not engage." A knock thundered at the front door. Then Patricia's voice, syrupy but sharp. "Ashley, dear, we're here for a few family pieces. Marcus always meant to give back. Open the door, please." I stood silent at the top of the stairs. Raymond's voice boomed. "We have a right to enter this property. It's Coleman family land. You're a guest at best." Another knock, harder this time. I could hear my own pulse in my ears, then faintly the sound of sirens in the distance. Patricia's tone shifted, panic threading through her words. Ashley, this is ridiculous. We're not criminals. We just want what's ours. I descended the stairs slowly, phone still in hand, recording. When I reached the foyer, I stayed behind the locked door. This is my home, I said loudly, my voice trembling but firm. You have no legal right to be here. The sheriff is on the way. You manipulative little Gerald started, but Timothy hissed at him to be quiet. Within minutes, 2 sheriff's cars rolled into the driveway, blue lights flashing. The deputies stepped out calmly but with authority. Morning, folks, one of them said. Got a call about a trespassing dispute. Patricia pasted on her church lady smile. Deputy, this is all a misunderstanding. We're simply retrieving heirlooms from our brother's home. One deputy took her aside while the other approached the door. Ma'am, are you Ashley Coleman? Yes, I said through the screen. You're the legal owner of this property? Yes. My attorney has filed all the documents with the clerk's office. He nodded. All right. Could you step out and confirm with us? I opened the door just enough to hand him a copy of Marcus's will and the property deed Charles had couriered to me last week. The deputy skimmed the papers, then turned back to the Colemans. This property belongs to Mrs. Coleman. Y'all need to leave. Raymond's face flushed deep crimson. You're siding with her. We're his blood. Doesn't matter, the deputy said evenly. These documents are clear. If you want to dispute them, go through the court. But you can't come onto her property uninvited. Patricia's mask cracked. Marcus would never, she began, but the deputy held up a hand. Ma'am, you're trespassing. This is your one warning. The Colemans exchanged looks, muttering, then retreated to their SUVs. Gerald slammed his door so hard the vehicle rocked. Before pulling out of the driveway, Patricia rolled down her window and called, You think you've won, Ashley, but this isn't over. I stood on the porch watching the taillights disappear, my knees trembling with adrenaline. The deputies gave me a few tips on filing a restraining order, then left. When the driveway was finally empty, the silence felt enormous. I went back inside and closed every lock. For a long time, I just sat at the kitchen table staring at the mug in my hands. Marcus's mug. My house. My life. Later that evening, Charles called. They won't risk filing a contest. That no contest clause is too dangerous for them. Today was bluster. I still can't believe they came like that, I said. They underestimated you, Charles replied. Marcus didn't. That night, I walked through the house, turning off lights. In the living room, I stopped before the antique cabinet that held the silver tea service. For a moment, I pictured handing it over, offering peace. Then I remembered the knock at my door, the SUVs, the threat in Patricia's voice. No. These weren't just objects anymore. They were symbols of the life Marcus and I built together and of my right to defend it. I whispered to the empty room. We're okay, Marcus. We're okay. Outside, the night settled around the house, quiet and protective. For the first time in months, I slept without waking up at 3 a.m. to check the locks. But in the morning, another letter was waiting in my mailbox. This one wasn't from a lawyer. It was handwritten, the envelope smudged as though carried in a nervous hand. Inside, a single line. You don't know what you've started. The note sat on the counter like a living thing. Its ink slightly smeared the letters pressed hard into the paper. You don't know what you've started. I called Charles immediately. Another note, I said, my voice low. Save it, don't touch it more than you have, he instructed. I'll forward this to the sheriff and request an evidence bag. It's intimidation, but it's also a paper trail. By evening, a deputy came to collect the envelope. We'll dust it for prints, he said. You're not alone in this. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that the walls were closing in. I slept with a lamp on in the hallway. I left a flashlight by my bed. My phone stayed plugged in at arm's reach. 3 nights later, at 2:47 a.m., I woke to the sound of gravel crunching outside. Heart hammering, I crept to the window. A dark figure was at the edge of the porch, crouched near the antique cabinet visible through the living room window. I dialed 911 with shaking fingers. There's someone outside my home, I whispered. The dispatcher's voice was calm. "Stay on the line, ma'am. Deputies are on the way." The figure straightened and turned toward the door. For a split second, the porch light caught his face. It was Gerald. I stepped back from the window, pressing my back to the wall. In the distance, faint sirens began to grow louder. Gerald saw the flashing blue lights approaching, hesitated, then bolted toward the woods at the edge of the property. Deputies arrived within minutes. They found boot prints in the flower bed and fresh scratches on the window frame, as if someone had been trying to pry it open. "This just escalated to attempted burglary," the senior deputy said grimly. "Do you want to press charges?" I thought about Marcus's words. "Don't feel guilty about fighting them." My hands stopped trembling. "Yes," I said. "I want to press charges." The deputies nodded. "We'll pick him up before dawn." By 7:00 a.m., Gerald was in custody. The sheriff's office called to inform me he'd been arrested for trespassing and attempted burglary. "We're also investigating the threatening notes," they said. "This could carry serious consequences." The news spread quickly. By afternoon, Patricia herself called me, her voice trembling with outrage and fear. "Ashley, drop the charges," she begged. "He was just upset, he didn't mean." "Patricia," I said evenly, "your family has harassed me since Marcus died. You've tried to take my home, my livelihood, and now you've sent someone to break into my house. No. This ends now." She sobbed, a raw sound I'd never heard from her before. "We've lost everything," she whispered. "Marcus was supposed to." "Marcus protected me because he knew this was coming," I said quietly. "He gave you all a chance to be decent and you chose otherwise. Please don't call me again." I hung up. The following week, Charles accompanied me to court for the restraining order hearing. The Colemans were there, Patricia in black, Raymond pale, and tight-lipped Gerald in a county-issued jumpsuit and handcuffs. The judge listened to the evidence, the no contest clause, the threatening notes, the attempted break-in. When it was over, she granted a permanent restraining order against the entire Coleman family and set Gerald's case for trial. "You've been more than patient," the judge said, looking directly at me. "You're entitled to peace." I walked out of the courthouse into bright winter sunlight. Charles put a hand on my shoulder. "Marcus would be proud," he said simply. In the weeks that followed, the calls stopped. No more letters. No more SUVs in my driveway. Gerald eventually took a plea deal, probation, a fine, and mandatory counseling. Patricia and Raymond moved to Florida to live with one of the nephews. The house, once a battlefield, began to feel like a home again. I painted the study a soft sage green, donated half the old furniture to charity, and turned Marcus's home office into a small reading room filled with plants and sunlight. One spring afternoon, I sat on the porch with a cup of tea, watching robins hop across the lawn. The air smelled of lilacs. For the first time since Marcus's diagnosis, the silence around me felt peaceful, not threatening. I realized then that Marcus's true gift wasn't just the legal protections or the property. It was the freedom to choose my own future. The next week, I applied for a part-time position at the animal shelter where we had volunteered. I wanted to spend my days doing something meaningful rather than guarding what Marcus left behind. On my first day at the shelter, a young volunteer handed me a trembling golden retriever puppy found abandoned by the roadside. The puppy licked my hand, tail wagging uncertainly. "You can foster him if you like," the volunteer said. I smiled. "Yes," I said, "I'd like that." That evening, back at the house, I placed the puppy's bed by the fireplace. He curled up instantly, sighing in contentment. I poured myself tea in Marcus's chipped mug and sat beside him, feeling something warm settle inside me. "Not vengeance, not victory, just peace," I whispered softly to the quiet house. "We're okay, Marcus. We're finally okay." And for the first time in months, I truly believed it.